we hope to bring some clarity to that today as we move in the next few months, it sounds like, toward a final adjudication in terms of what's best for our personnel and the taxpayers. We're here today to discuss the GAO's report that we've all seen that was requested by Congress to examine two options for the State Department's new consolidated diplomatic security training facility. Before that, I thought I might give a little background, but the tragic events that transpired in Benghazi, Libya on September the 11th, 2012 remind us that we need to prepare our Foreign Service officers for the worst and prepare our diplomatic security agents to take on any challenging while protecting sovereign U.S. soil and valuable American lives. Our civil servants overseas are operating in an increasingly hostile world. Just this February, State had to evacuate the U.S. Embassy in Sana'a due to increased hostilities there, and there have been others. This is ongoing every month, it seems. Our State Department personnel are indeed in very tough situations around the world, and we owe them the utmost in protection. Indeed, protecting Americans abroad is paramount. Our nation must ensure that Americans sent to serve our nation overseas are safe and have the skills they need to protect themselves from any threat. As chairman of the State Department Management Subcommittee and as a member of the Budget Committee, I'm also responsible for the accountable spending of taxpayer dollars, as we all are. Today, we're here to look at the process for building this new diplomatic security facility. For those of you who aren't familiar with the history, I thought I might just go through just a little bit of background. State Bureau of Diplomatic Security, DS, I'll refer to as we go through this, identified the need to consolidate training functions as early as 1993. State leases and contracts today, there are 11 facilities to provide comprehensive high threat and hard skills training, and then there are 8 other facilities that provide soft skills training, which in 2011, a 2011 GAO report has found to be insufficient, ineffective, and changes needed to happen. So this has been identified for some period of time. In May of 2008, State came up with a concept of Foreign Affairs Security Training Center, or FASC, as we'll refer to it in the rest of the conversation today. This program was authorized and appropriated in 2009 when Congress set aside $70 million to identify and procure a permanent site for FASC. Over 2 years, State and GSA studied 70 sites and determined that Fort Pickett was their best option in 2010 in Virginia. In December 2012, State put forth a full master plan for FASC with a price tag of under $1 billion, $900+ million. In 2013, OMB directed State to consider as an option augmenting an existing facility like the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, or FLETC, in Brunswick, Georgia, which currently trains over 90 law enforcement and other federal and local agencies with hard and soft skills training. Let me say this before we go any further. If this hearing doesn't do anything else, it confirms that God has a sense of humor, that the 2 facilities we're now looking at as the final options, one is in Virginia, and our ranking member, Senator Tim Kaine, represents Virginia, and the other facility is in Georgia, and I represent Georgia along with my senior senator, Johnny Isakson, here. But I want to assure, for the record, everyone here that we're all about the same objective, and that is this. We want to make sure that our personnel are adequately trained to meet the challenges and dangers abroad. That's the objective function. And the second thing that we're here to do as part of oversight of State Department is make sure that we spend taxpayer money appropriately. That's it. There's nothing parochial going on here, and I applaud Senator Kaine for the way he's handled this, and Senator Isakson in the past as well. Let me continue with this. FLETC's original proposal was $272 million against that same scope at that point. We'll talk a lot today about scope, but the scope that presented the first bid at, our first estimate at and that's what it was a bid at $900 million. FLETC's proposal came in with a similar scope or a given scope of 272. State later reduced the scope of that plan, removing soft skills, cafeterias, housing, medical, and recreation facilities. In the end, we're looking at a reduced scope proposal with an initial capital cost of $413 million at FASC versus $243 for augmenting FLETC. And later, we'll get into these numbers a little more. I'm just trying to hit the high points here. Per the request of Congress, GAO has reevaluated these proposals. Unfortunately, we still don't have a true apples-to-apples comparison as we sit here today, and we'll talk about that more as well. What we want to get at today is the process by which these decisions have been made. The state went ahead on a major construction project And we've invested, I think, $71 million now at the Fort Pickett, Virginia location. This full assessment, while it may end up being the right choice, I would argue that we don't have a true apples-to-apples comparison yet today against the original scope or against the revised scopes that have been put forward. So part of our hope today is to make sure that we all agree, or that State Department will present what that scope needs to be, so that as we look at this outside group that's doing the new study between now and December, we won't have to revisit this after that, so that we all agree on what that scope and mission is. There's a delay, actually. I think that project's been put on hold, as I understand it, until we get this apples-to-apples comparison. And I applaud the State Department for taking one last look at this to make sure that we spend the money that's absolutely necessary. And I just want to make sure, again, that we re-emphasize that this is not a parochial conversation. This is about taxpayer money and the mission that we have of training people. The review today, though, is part of a bigger process. I want to take just a second on this, about how we spend money in State Department, and it's not just in training. Looking at embassy construction is just one that we will eventually get to. There are several recent examples that do raise concerns. Just this summer, our committee received a notification from the state that the new embassy compound in Islamabad, Pakistan, originally estimated at $850 million, is now going to be, the estimate of overrun is about $87 million. The $1 billion embassy in London is now $100 million over budget, and it's not done yet. And in Papua New Guinea, a $50 million estimate originally now has turned into a $211 million embassy in Papua. So that raises questions. As a business guy looking at this, I know Tim, with his background, Senator Kane rather, has looked at these things as well. Overruns happen when scopes change. We all understand that. But when you see a continuous pattern, it does heighten the need for oversight, in my opinion. So with that, let me turn to our ranking member, Senator Tim Kane, and thank him for his work on this over the past few months since I've been here, indeed years past. Thank you.